Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to How Non-Techies Can Launch Successful Tech Startups with Nelly Yusupova. My name is Colin Mahan, and I'm a program manager at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. For those of you who may not know or are just joining us for the first time, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit dedicated to enabling entrepreneurs from all over the world to realize their maximum potentials and grow. As you may have just seen in the chat, the NASDAQ Center, along with our partner Mentor Cloud, launched a free mentor matching platform for entrepreneurs called Mentor Makers. You can create your own advisory board to guide and inspire you with in-the-moment mentorship from topic experts and professionals dedicated to providing exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So find or become a mentor today by using the link in the chat. As we know, mentorship matters to all entrepreneurs. Their success is dependent on it. Quick housekeeping item, we're going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event, so please submit your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. Again, none of what we do here at the center could be possible without all the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, BPM, and NZTE. We're humbled by their contributions. Now, during these still unique times, we're curious on how sentiment is among the entrepreneurs that we work with. So we're going to start by taking a poll to let us know how you're feeling about your business right now. The second question in our poll, what's keeping you up at night, helps us understand the responsive programming that you, our entrepreneurs, need. So let us know by voting on the poll and let us know how you're doing. Also, what's keeping you up at night? We're going to let this go for a little bit, but I don't want to lag too much because all of you guys are excited for our guest speaker today. So looking like optimism is pretty much on the rise, but understandable that anxiety and just surviving are sentiments amongst the people out there. So I'm going to end this poll. Thank you all for voting, and I'm going to show you these results. Optimism is at the top of the key, but totally understand there's some fear, anxiety, and just surviving out there. So hopefully this presentation today will alleviate some of those feelings. What's keeping you up at night is finance. So thanks for sharing that one. And it's a pretty good mix between sales, marketing, scale, pivot, and thriving. So hopefully our speaker today will help with all of those things. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome in the chat to our special guest, Nelly. She's a CTO with over 18 years of experience leading companies to technical excellence. She's a startup tech advisor, outsourced CTO, and the creator of TechSpeak for entrepreneurs. Nelly, welcome.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Hello, everybody.
Well, so happy to have you.
Excited to be here. Yes, yep, thank you so much.
And I'll let you jump right in. Good luck.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. All right. Thank you, everybody. As Colin mentioned, I'm going to be taking questions at the end. So as things come up during the presentation, please write your questions down, submit them into the Q&A, and we'll address as many of them as we can towards the end of the presentation. So today, hold on, let me just, there we go. Today, I'm going to show you how you can make the shift from struggling to develop your products and feeling uncertain on what you should be doing to successfully building your MVPs in the next 3 to 4 months so you can start to get traction for your products. And if you're looking for a technical co-founder or CTO, which is, I know, a big topic a lot of people have if you're not technical, you are going to be able to do that as well. So I can't know exactly the reason why you're here, but I bet I can guess. I work a lot with non-tech entrepreneurs. Tell me if you're resonating with one of the 3 reasons of why you showed up here today. So reason number 1, you maybe have, you're a non-technical founder, you have an amazing idea for a software business, but you've had a hard time finding a technical co-founder or CTO to help you build the product. Or reason number 2, you've thought about learning how to code so you can build your own product, but deep down inside, you know there's a much more efficient and faster way to get your app idea built. Or how about this? Reason number 3, you want to make the bold move into becoming a software entrepreneur, but you've had a fear about taking the leap and you actually feel stuck because you don't know how to get started. So jump in the comments and let me know, which one are you? Which one is resonating with you the most? And Colin, if you could help me read some of the answers, that would be great. So are you number 1, number 2, or number 3? Tell me in the comments.
Gina says number 1. They're flooding in. Keith says number 3. Lou, thanks for your response. He's number 1. We've got Godfrey as a number 3. Billy's 2 and 3, but more leaning towards 3. Emmett is 1. Christie's 1. Emily, the full force of 1, 2, and 3. We've got Hin 1. Daniela 2. Heather 3. Donna West 2. They keep coming. Richard 1 and 3. Shiri or Cheryl 3. Connor 2.
Great. Thank you, Colin. Yes. And I am so glad that you took the time to be here today. These are one of the most number 1 reasons why a lot of people who are non-technical founders come to me to be able to address some of the questions. So I'm going to very quickly take a minute to introduce myself. I'm a CTO, I'm a startup tech advisor, and a creator of TechSpeak for Entrepreneurs, which is an online program where I teach the most effective and efficient ways to manage tech teams and projects without being technical or knowing how to code. What's most important for you to know is that I have managed tech teams and projects for over 18 years, and I've refined and optimized my process over time. And I've taught my TechSpeak 10-step process, which we're going to learn about today, to over 1,200 students, and worked with thousands of startups, helping them with their tech strategies and fix and optimize their processes. So I've got a question for you. Can you imagine what it would feel like if you could launch your product successfully without being dependent on a technical co-founder? If you could stop waiting for Mr. or Mrs. Right tech person and finally start to get traction for your products. Think of how much money and time you can save and how much freedom you can have if you have the skills to get your ideas developed and do it in an effective manner without getting ripped off. Type yes in the comments if you no longer want to be dependent on a technical co-founder. Be dependent on someone else to code your product so you can finally start to get traction for your products. No longer not having the skills or the confidence to bring your ideas to life. Can I get a yes to that? And Colin, let me know if people are participating.
Oh, we've got
lots and lots of yeses flooding in.
So many yeses flooding in. Yes, man. Right.
Thank you. That's exactly why I started teaching my process to non-technical founders so that they can get their power back and be able to lead a team without being technical or learning how to code. Here's where we're going today. First, we're going to learn why it's so hard to find a technical co-founder or CTO and what you should be doing instead to get your idea off the ground. The one thing you must be in the early stages to be successful, 2 money-saving skills you should have to test your ideas without engaging a developer, how to define your MVPs properly to reduce the cost and time of development, the importance of process. I'm going to also share how to work with me if you're interested. And finally, we'll go into the live Q&A. So let's get to it. Tell me if you're resonating with this scenario. You're a non-technical founder who has an amazing idea for an app business. And the first thing you think about is, I need a technical partner, a tech co-founder or a CTO. You think to yourself, having a co-founder will save me money because they'll work for equity. You also think to yourself, I don't have to worry about the tech side of the business and I can actually focus on marketing and sales. And then you start looking for one. Months go by and you have no luck. You even think to yourself, maybe I need to learn how to code. I don't know about you, but it took me years to become a proficient coder. And here's the problem. The problem is the longer you wait, the big risk that you run is that you will miss the market opportunity. In the early days of your startup, finding a technical co-founder or CTO is a very common problem. Type yes into the chat if you've tried finding a technical co-founder or CTO or are currently in the process of doing so. And also type hard to find if you've spent at least 3 months looking for someone technical to join your team. Let's see, Colin, are there lots of yeses and hard to finds in the chat?
We've got a bunch of yeses coming in. Emmett, yes. Money, yep.
So if you spent at least 3 months looking for someone technical to join your team, type hard to find. Generally, in my own webinars, I get lots of people typing hard to find. And that's why in my TechSpeak program, I actually teach my students that you don't find a technical co-founder or CTO, you earn one. Here's the thing. A good technical person who wants to take a risk and work in a startup is probably already busy doing a startup with their own idea. So you actually have to convince other great technical people why they should take a risk on you and your idea by showing to them that you're not just an idea person, but that you can actually get stuff done, that you'll be able to deliver as the business person. These other great technical people who are not already working on their own ideas, they don't have a problem earning a living in today's environment. In fact, there's a shortage of great developers, and companies are willing to pay top dollar to hire great technical talent. So on one hand, developers have plenty of choices. On the other hand, 2 out of 10 startups fail in their first year. So there's a lot of risk involved. And one way to get the potential technical co-founder to say yes to you is by showing to them that you have taken some of the risk out of their time and opportunity cost investment. Here are some things that you can do to mitigate the tech person's risk and earn a technical co-founder or CTO. The first thing is to validate the idea and build the prototype. This will demonstrate that there's a need and a demand for your product, that your idea is not just an idea. And we will find in the second part of the presentation that these 2 things require absolutely no technical expertise, which is really, really exciting. The second thing is to build a community and a following. This will further demonstrate the need for your idea and also show that you have the marketing skills necessary to sell the product. Again, that you're not just an idea person. And finally, invest some of your own money to build the MVP and outsource the building of the MVP. This will demonstrate that you believe in the potential of the idea, that you have skin in the game, and that you will find to bring your idea to life no matter what. In the second part of the presentation, I will show you how to plan your MVPs effectively, so this step should actually not cost you a lot of money. But getting traction as a result of doing these 3 things will shift the conversation from I need you to here's a great opportunity. And you should be lucky to be a part of it. You don't actually need to say that last bit, but it will definitely be inferred by whoever you're talking to. You'll be able to say, look what I've been able to achieve without you. Imagine what we can do together. Type yes in the chat if you see the power of this conversation shift. It is a game changer for most of the entrepreneurs in your situation. And I've seen lots and lots of people use this strategy to actually get to a lot of success. So type yes in the chat if you see the power of this conversation shift. Colin, let me know.
Yes is coming in. Thank you. Oh, Keith, Danielle, Peter. Yeah, tons of yeses.
Thank you so much. Well, with this strategy, what you're going to do is 2 things in parallel. So on one side, you're going to de-risk the opportunity for the tech person by validating your idea, building the prototype, and outsource the building of the MVP with the goal of gaining traction for your idea. Because once you have the MVP in the market, you can start to go out and sell it, onboard customers, etc. Right? And while doing all of this, parallel to doing this, you will be actively looking for a technical co-founder or CTO by building your network of technical contacts. And hopefully by the time you meet them, you will have enough traction that the opportunity will be a no-brainer for the potential technical co-founder or CTO to simply say yes to you. This approach is very effective because it allows you to showcase your commitment to the idea, showcase your skills and value as a non-technical founder, and highlight and demonstrate that you are an amazing asset to the success of the company. This is such an important mental shift, and I want you to commit right now in the chat to make this mental shift of earning a technical co-founder. It has been a game changer to a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've been working with. Type "I am committed" in the comments and get your brain pathway to actually seriously take this seriously. And while you guys are typing "I'm committed," and Colin, I want lots and lots of people to actually type this. There's a lot of people in this room, over 100 people, and I want 100 of those people type "I'm committed." I'm going to share a quick story. So about 2 months ago, in my own webinars, there was a woman who wrote me the nicest thank you note, and she was sitting in the seat just like you. She typed "I'm committed," and she took this seriously. She learned how to validate, she learned how to prototype, and prior to this, she had spent 8 months looking for anyone technical to even pay attention to her. Every time she would reach out, she would get crickets. Nobody responded to any of her requests because technical people were inundated with these types of requests. So she took this seriously. She went and validated her idea. She built a prototype. And when she wrote me the thank you note, she said, "I am so excited. I'm actually getting people to respond to me, and I'm potentially talking to someone who is interested in coming on board." Right? So this has been a game changer. You want to be able to take your idea from just an idea to actually having something. The more you can do, the more leverage you have in getting people to come work with you. And once you find someone, please don't make the mistake of saying yes too quickly. I always equate finding a co-founder to dating. Just like you wouldn't ask someone you just met to marry you, or you shouldn't ask a person that you've just met to become your co-founder. Way too many people, especially non-technical people, because they oftentimes function from a position of need, they say yes to a co-founder relationship way too early. You have to vet the person. You have to see how well you communicate and work together. Are you able to solve really difficult problems? How do you act in stressful and challenging situations? It's not just about finding someone who can complement your skill set. It's about finding someone who believes in the vision, who is aligned with your vision, how you want to grow the company. How do you feel about working side by side together with this person for 5 or 7 more years, right? A true partner. So don't get a co-founder just so that you can put a check mark that you have one. It's the wrong approach, and one that can literally cost you your company, because the number one reason why a lot of startups never get off the ground or fail is because of falling out between co-founders. Can you believe that? The number one reason. And that is very, very serious. So if you find someone compatible, figure out how you can work together on a project, maybe pay them first and then decide to make them a co-founder. And that's why earning a technical co-founder strategy is such a great strategy. It will allow you to make progress while you're searching for your partner and building that relationship with someone. All right. So now let's very quickly shift gears and learn how you can build an MVP effectively and efficiently. So the hard truth is that as a non-technical person, without a technical co-founder or CTO, outsourcing the development of your MVP will actually be the fastest way to launch your idea, to start to get traction, and also to find a technical co-founder or CTO. All right, so let's address the elephant in the room, which is outsourcing. So you're probably thinking of 1 or 2 horror stories that you've heard about outsourcing. I've personally rescued at least 25 projects in the last 3 years that my team and I took over from a bad outsource situation. And in fact, I created TechSpeak after speaking to thousands of entrepreneurs in my workshops and seminars at conferences across the country and hearing the horror stories about their tech projects getting out of control. I mean, $60,000 and $80,000, even a startup who lost $100,000 of their seed round simply because they didn't know what they were doing. At first, I blamed the developers and the agencies, and I couldn't understand how they could morally function like this or even stay in business. But the more I dug into it, the more I started realizing that the problem is not always with developers. Most often, it's actually the entrepreneur. Part of the problem for the non-tech entrepreneur is not knowing the process of building web and mobile applications, not knowing how to communicate their ideas so that their tech team will know exactly what to do, not knowing how to hire the right tech people, not knowing how to manage the project, trusting that the developers will take care of everything, and not knowing the right questions to ask to ensure that the right decisions are made for the business and that all of the technology decisions are aligned with business goals. And when you don't know any of these things, you will always, always, always make a lot of costly mistakes because you will miss a lot of the red flags. The red flags are always there, but if you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't know what you don't know, you will miss the red flags. So the issue here is not that outsourcing doesn't work. The issue is that you may not know how to outsource properly. And the good news is that I can easily teach you how to do that. And that's what we're going to learn today. So that brings me to the one thing that you must be in the early stages of your startup to run a successful tech startup as a non-technical founder. And that is being technically literate. This means that you'll need to learn some fundamental technical concepts. You'll need to know some of the tech jargon, right? And what all of that means. You'll need to understand the best technical processes and know how to easily identify when things are going wrong. You need to become knowledgeable about the web, how things work, what's behind the scenes, what happens when you click on the button in the browser, what happens on the back end. You need to understand servers, how all of that communications happens, learn about all the different programming languages and how they work together, understanding APIs, databases, libraries, frameworks, all of that jargon, right? You need to understand the high levels of what goes on behind the scenes of your product. Then you can set the expectations in your mind and with your team on how things should work. This is what will give you the confidence to have those conversations and ask the right questions. This will give you the confidence to push back when the developers say it can't be done or it can only be done a certain way. It will give you the confidence to control and negotiate how much time something should take and how much money it should cost. Having that knowledge is going to completely transform the way you see and make connections with technology. All of a sudden, things will start to make sense to you. Things that you will see in the future that you wouldn't have seen before will be able to connect with the knowledge because you already have the technical base that is necessary to start to spot those things. And the confidence that you'll get from being technically literate is going to literally change how other technical people perceive you. You're going to be able to attract more serious technical people simply because you're able to communicate more effectively with them. For example, I had someone who attended TechSpeak who was able to get into an accelerator without the required technical co-founder simply because she was able to confidently communicate how she was going to work with and effectively manage an outsourced team of developers. So it didn't matter that she didn't have a technical team behind her because she had the confidence and knew exactly how the tech was going to be managed. And that gave the accelerator enough confidence to accept her. So again, this is going to be life-changing. And I want you to commit right now in the chat to take steps to becoming more tech literate. So from this point on, anytime you hear a term that you don't recognize, you go Google it. You start to take action, you start to learn it. And this is so, so important. If you're a non-technical founder getting into tech, you must be technically literate. You do not need to know how to code, but this is really important. And Colin, I want to see 110 commitments in the chat. So let me know if those are flooding in.
They're flooding in, but I have lost count. But I'm good. I'm committed. Philly's committed.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. this is literally going to be a game changer for you and not an option. All right, so now I'm going to walk you through the 3 secrets to outsourcing success. Secret number 1, do not build anything until you refine the idea and the solution. So how many of you resonate with this? Think of the first time you've thought of an idea, the very first time that you came up with the idea. Did you immediately think that you need to find someone technical to build it? I get this query on a daily basis. People contact me and they say, Nelly, I have an amazing idea. Can you help me find a developer? Well, if you did, you're not the only one. In the TechSpeak process that I teach, I mentioned the TechSpeak 10-step process. Writing code is actually step number 8. That means that there are 7 steps that you need to go through before you write a line of code. Let that sink in. 7 steps that you need to go through before you write a line of code. Step number 1 is validate. This is where you will refine the idea. Step number 2 is prototype. This is where you will refine your solution. Steps 3 to 7 is where you will define your MVP and plan and prepare for development. Steps 8 and 9, this is where you're going to be writing the code, is coding and deploying. And finally, step number 10 is to set up analytics so that instead of guessing, you can use data to make product improvement decisions. And by the way, every single idea, whether it's a brand new product or a new idea for an existing product, needs to go through all of these 10 steps. All right, back to secret number 1. Don't build anything until you refine the idea and the solution. No matter how good your team is, whether it's internal or outsourced, you will waste your time and money if you jump straight into coding without refining the idea and the solution, because you will always end up building a lot of unnecessary features and functionalities that your customers won't end up using, which will result in a lot of wasted development, which directly translates into wasted time and money. So validation will help you refine your ideas to make sure that they're a painkiller. It's not enough to have a good idea for a product or a feature. Your ideas must solve a painkiller problem, that level 10, 11, 12 problem out of 10, right? And not be a vitamin. If people just want what you're building but don't actually need it, you will have a much harder time getting your customers to use and pay for your products. Let's say you have an idea for a product, or again, a new feature for an existing product. You would refine your idea through a process called customer development. Let me demonstrate how valuable customer development process is through an example. So here we have a non-tech entrepreneur who wanted to build a tech application around international news. Validation helped them identify their ideal customer for the service, and it actually wasn't who they originally thought it was going to be. How people felt about their riskiest assumptions and how to adjust those assumptions to directly address customer concerns, specifically how other solutions on the market fail to solve the problems they're trying to solve, what type of content they should create, what countries to focus on, what business models should be, and so much more. Again, without these details and the insights, they would have had to build so much more functionality than necessary, targeted the wrong customer segment, and ultimately wasted a ton of money recoding later, because they would have eventually learned these insights, but only after the product was built. And also a very important note that customer development validation is not about putting together a few surveys or doing focus groups. To get these types of valuable insights, you have to follow a very detailed hypothesis-driven process by conducting one-on-one interviews with potential customers. My customer validation process consists of 10 steps, and I have over 20 worksheets that I use and follow. So make sure you don't take this step lightly. And I know so many founders who read all of the books on customer validation, they know all of the terminology, but either implement it incorrectly or frankly, they don't do it at all because the books don't actually teach you the step-by-step for how to actually do it right. You need to focus on testing the right hypotheses and designing the interviews in a way that does not lead the user to your solution. In fact, I tell people, forget about your solution in this step, which is the solution is step number 2, which is prototype. We'll talk about that in a second. So I had a student who came in with prototypes, and she was saying to me, I'm a veteran in the industry. I know my market in and out. And I don't need to do customer validation. I already have a solution. These are my prototypes. This is what I'm going to build. And I pushed her to do customer development. I said, just spend a week or two and forget about your solution. Just see if there's any insights that you can gather that you haven't anticipated before. And she did. She discovered one insight that completely changed the solution. She was still solving the same problem for the same market, but in a completely different way. And of course, that saved her so much time and money, and probably years of trying to figure out that she was going to build the wrong thing and solve the problem in a different way. But she would have eventually discovered it, but wouldn't you want to do it before you even get started, right? So don't lead users to your solutions. Make sure you do this validation step properly, and or work with someone who already knows the process. Again, I would like for you to commit to doing this properly, validate your ideas so that you know before building anything that someone actually wants and needs. And again, this is such a crucial step. Will inform every single product decision that you make. So step number one is validate. All the rest of the 9 steps will be dependent based on this specific, the insights that you get in this specific step. So Colin, I want to see another 110 commitments here. Let me know if we're seeing those rolling in.
Oh, they're flooding in. Committed, committed, committed. Gina. Yep.
Great. Thank you, guys. So let's keep moving. So once you validate your idea, you'll need to refine the solution by first building an interactive prototype of that solution without writing any code. And then you'll refine the solution by getting feedback from potential customers. So, and these prototypes are so realistic that your potential customers won't even know that it's not real. So here's a quick demo of a prototype application, a recording of me using the prototype.
This is a recording of me using the prototype on my phone. As you can see, I can click on buttons and different elements, and it feels like I'm using a real app. We're simulating these interactions using prototyping tools. These tools allow us to easily define what elements will be clickable and what the user will see when they click on the hotspot. And all of this is done without writing any code. Looks pretty realistic, doesn't it?
So this is such a game changer for a lot of people. And I'm going to share an example and the value of doing this step. So we hear this demo that you just saw was a non-tech entrepreneur who wanted to build a tech application around politics. And prototyping helped them test multiple solutions before writing any code, because the first 2 versions of their solution didn't resonate with their users. And after collecting user feedback, they went back to the drawing board and got it right on the 3rd try. And if they had jumped into coding after creating their first prototype, they would have had to re-architect their entire app later and rewrite a lot of code. And that would have been very expensive. Remember, it's a lot cheaper to rapidly change prototypes than it is to rewrite code. And by the way, writing code is actually prototyping, right? But it's way more expensive. It's on a more expensive side of the market to be able to do that. So you want to be able to iterate your ideas and not guess what the solution is in the prototyping stage, which is a lot easier to do and cheaper to do. And every entrepreneur that I taught these 2 skills to found it very empowering, because these 2 skills will give you the freedom to independently test your own ideas without having to engage with the developer. Can you imagine what it would feel like to be able to test your own ideas without having to engage with a developer? Think of how much money you can save and how much freedom you can have if you have the skills to know that you're building the solution that someone actually needs and wants. And it actually gets even better. I'd like for you to meet Gabe. He was a realtor who saw a lot of inefficiencies in a real estate business. He used validation and prototyping to come up with a solution to solve some of those inefficiencies. And he took his clickable prototype, no coding, he took his clickable prototype to a real estate agency and was able to sign them on as a customer and got paid in advance to build it. He found in validation a really high pain point. He found a business that would pay money to solve that problem. And he was able to pre-sell his solution. And got paid in advance to actually build it. And this is the power of these things, right? Can you imagine what it would feel like to get paid in advance to build your apps? And the answer is you can if you have these two skills. And by the way, getting back to earning your technical co-founder, these two skills, customer development and prototyping, are the first steps of earning your technical co-founder. Like you just saw, they require absolutely no technical knowledge. And this is a way for you to actually get started. This is where you should be starting. If you have no technical co-founder and you don't have an idea out in the market, but you have an idea of that you want to bring to the market, this is where you need to get started. No technical skills required. All right, let's keep moving. Secret number 2, define your MVP properly by understanding what affects the cost of development. So once you've refined your idea and the solution, you're now ready to define, build, and deploy your solution. But of course, we're not jumping into code just yet. You now need to define a minimal viable version of the prototype that you created in step number 2. So by definition, an MVP is the smallest number of features that you can launch with that will still provide value to your customers. But simply reducing the number of features that you launch with, let's say from 20 to 4, is not enough. Let me show you why. So have you ever wondered how the same project can be estimated to cost $10,000 and $50,000, and both estimates could be completely legitimate? That's because the details of what and how you build something matter a lot. One of those details is knowing what affects the cost of development. Here's an example to illustrate this. What do you think costs more to implement? This form where we collect user location in 4 fields, or this form where we ask the user to just enter the zip code and automatically show them their city and state? Type your answer in the chat. And Colin, let me know if we get more 1s or more 2s. What do you think costs more to implement? Number 1 or number 2?
We're getting more 2s than 1s.
Great. So if you guess number 2, you are absolutely correct. In the second implementation, we have to write more code to get the user's city and state based on zip code. So you actually, on purpose, can decide to implement the cheaper version of the solution to save money. Version number 2 is much more slick, and it's more easier to use for the user, right? But it is much cheaper to do number 2. So you can actually pick and choose how to implement the cheaper solution. And there's lots and lots of different decisions like this that you can make that will control the costs of your MVPs. And remember, in earning a technical co-founder, we talked about reducing the cost or investing some of your own money to build the MVP. This is how you're going to do it. Using some of the development cost reducing strategies that I teach, one of my students was able to reduce the cost of her MVP from $50,000 to $15,000 and cut the development time from 4 months to 2. And so I would encourage you to be able to do this stuff and have this mindset of what things can I do to reduce the cost of my MVP. And sometimes it means that you're going to be using a lot of no-code tools, a lot of low-code tools, or some combination of all of these things, right? And not custom building everything. So this is how you can reduce the cost of your MVP and be able to move forward. Can you imagine what it would feel like to get your project costs reduced? Wouldn't that be amazing? Type yes in the comments if you would like the cost of your projects to be significantly reduced. I should see over 100 yeses here because that's why we're all here, right? We don't want to waste a lot of time and money building the wrong things. Colin, let me know if we have a lot of yeses rolling in.
We have a ton of yeses. Of course, everyone likes saving money.
Yes, absolutely. So here's the problem. The problem is that most developers and agencies won't tell you this because the more you build, the more you get paid. They get paid. And that's why it's really important for you to know these cost reducing strategies, understand the process and all of these things, so you can work with them and push them to help you reduce the cost of your MVPs, and push back if they tell you that it's not possible or this is the only way to do something. All right. Secret number 3, have an impeccable process based on lean and agile methodologies to manage your team. So validating ideas and building a prototype are a part of the lean product development process, but it goes way beyond that. The bigger picture behind the lean way of building products is this whole mindset of learn early, learn often, and learn cheap. Outsourcing teams and a lot of dev shops and developers are not trained in this. They don't think how they can cut development costs and time. It goes against how they make money, how they value themselves and their skill set. So it's going to be up to you to insist and implement a lean process if this is the way that you decide that you go. And I would highly encourage that you do that. And an agile project management process will allow you to get working code from developers in at most 2 weeks. Imagine that, getting working code in at most 2 weeks. And that's the beauty of agile project management, is seeing the mistakes earlier and course correcting sooner. Keep in mind that there are many different flavors of agile, and many companies will claim that they do it well, but when you look under the hood, it's a whole different story. I personally looked under the hood of some of the most popular agencies in New York City, and I've even worked with some of them to improve their agile process. I have people in my program who have worked with agencies, got burned, some of those horror stories that we heard, because they were using agile. They promised this thing, but it wasn't all of the processes that I recommend that you use. And so there's lots of different spectrums of agile, and so make sure that you can understand all of them. You can launch code in every 2 weeks, but also as often as every day, or sometimes even multiple times a day, right? It all depends on how good your process is and how well your team is executing. That's why it's so important for you to understand what is a good process so you can keep them in check and manage that. To me, a good process is absolutely everything, because it creates transparency throughout the project so you can detect earlier when things are headed in the wrong direction. And I want to demonstrate how important an efficient process is with this story. So this is Eric. He's a student of mine. He had his software startup for 3 years before he learned the TechSpeak process. He had a tech team, he had a CTO, and this is what he said. He said, after 3 years in business, TechSpeak would have saved us close to $500,000 in delays, development costs, and sleepless nights. And that is the benefit of having an optimized process based on lean and agile methodologies. Remember, there's a difference between releasing code, which is what everyday developers do, and releasing code effectively and efficiently. And Eric's story just directly showcases, right, that if you don't use lean and agile methodologies, you are losing a lot of money to inefficiencies and miscommunications and poor planning. So the other point here is, don't rely on developers to come up with a process. Most developers are not managers and are not familiar with the latest methodologies that you should be using. Okay, they might have picked up a thing or two from whatever place they worked at before your company, but it might not be the most efficient and effective. Remember, every improvement in your process and team communication will have a great impact on your company's efficiencies, your company's speed, and of course, your company's bottom line. So I'm going to do a quick pause here for a second and do a quick recap of what you've learned so far. First, you learned how to earn a technical co-founder. Becoming tech literate is super important and not an option if you're going to run a tech startup. Outsourcing may be the best way to find a technical co-founder and actually, or CTO, if that's what you want, to use validation and prototyping to test and refine ideas without engaging developers. Use development cost reducing strategies when defining your MVPs to reduce the cost and time of development. And finally, implement lean and agile process to make sure that you're managing your teams effectively. And I'd love to know in the chat, from all of these ideas, what has been the most valuable for you so far? Please let me know in the comments. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all, or what combination of the 6 that has been the most valuable for you? And Colin, I would love to know the answers to that as well.
You've got a lot of 4s. Gina's got a 4. Ian 3, Philly 1. 1, 2, 3. 1, 4. Lots of 4s.
That's great. This is really the most important for a lot of non-tech founders who are they're stumped, right? Because they want to work with tech people and they can't. The number 4 is a way of getting started and actually finding the market, determine your marketing strategy, finding the problem and defining the problem so that it is a painkiller will actually show you how to build a product and give you the confidence to actually invest your time and money and energy into building something. So this is so, so important. All right. Thank you, guys. And if you are resonating with me, want to take the next steps, learn about the process, learn the details, I would love to invite you to TechSpeak for Entrepreneurs Academy. Go to techspeak.co to learn more. And if you'd like to register for the training, there's a 50% discount code that I'd like to extend to you. It's NASDAQ. So one other thing that I wanted to offer, and we'll see how many people take me up on this offer, is a free 15-minute consultation with me. Again, this is for you to be able to ask me any questions post this event. Feel free to go to techspeak.co /15 free to book a 15-minute consultation call with me and ask me any question that you want about your startup, your CTOs, your whatever question that you have. I'd love to be able to contribute to that. This is how I feel like I can make the biggest contribution to you guys. So let's take some questions. Colin, if you want to read off some of the questions, I'm happy to address them.
Awesome. And do you want to unshare your screen so everyone can see?
Yes.
Faces. Okay, great. Lots of questions. And a lot of people drop questions in the chat throughout this presentation. Considering all the times that you guys have voted in the polling, I lost some of them. So if you haven't put those questions into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, please do so. We'll hope to get to all of them. Great question from Richard. Will I need to update the code for an app every time Apple or Android release a new version of iOS or Android?
So it depends on how the app is structured. And so Android doesn't actually require you to resubmit your applications. But if you, sorry, you asked if you need to update the code every single time. Yeah, so maintenance. So I think let's address this as a bigger bucket here. So when you launch your product, you need to commit the time to actually maintain them. And every single time iOS updates their code base or Android updates their code base and requirements, you will need to update to keep up to date. And so some companies have different versions of their products that they're maintaining, and as a strategy, you have to decide at what point you're going to stop maintaining those older versions, because the more versions you have, the more it's costing you to upkeep the different versions, right? So that's a business decision that you have to make. And I know some people just say, we're going to force all of our customers to upgrade to the latest version. And there's a strategy for that as well. But yes, the cost of maintenance is something that a lot of founders don't consider. And it's a great question. And I'm glad that you asked it, because it should be on the peripheral of everybody's mind.
Amazing. Early on in the presentation, a couple people were chatting about NDAs and developers and outsourcing them. Can you speak a little bit about how to navigate that, especially if somebody wants to sign an NDA, or if the product or project or company gets acquired, who owns the code and how you deal with that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So generally, when I'll take it a little bit a step further as well. So when I talk about customer validation and talking to customers, there you're never sharing your secret sauce. So you should be sharing your ideas with as many people as you can. Get feedback. Don't be afraid. No one's going to steal your idea because you're not sharing your secret sauce. In fact, if you're doing validation properly, you're never even bringing up your product, right? You're just there to find out the problems and how big those problems are and how to communicate that value proposition. So that's number one. When you start to work with technical people and you can generally talk to them about your ideas, you can sign an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement, which basically says everything that I'm sharing with you, you're not going to share with anyone else. But once you enter into a relationship with them, so let's say you do your vetting and you decide to start working with them, there's a workers agreement, work for hire agreement that you're going to sign. And basically in that agreement, there will be a paragraph that says every single thing that they're developing for you is your intellectual property. Okay, you should never do any work that doesn't have that in there, because everything literally that they do and say on your behalf or your company's behalf is owned by you. That is including all the design elements, everything, right? It's not just code. And so if your company gets acquired, if you stop working with that development shop, whatever else, you just know that everything that they provide for you is your intellectual property. So that's how you go around that. And it's a pretty standard practice.
Awesome. And Imani has a question to follow up on that one. Should they walk away if a team or developer will not sign the NDA?
So that's depending on where you are. People in Silicon Valley are like, no, there's no unique ideas, and there's not one that I haven't heard before. I always get asked, to sign an NDA, and I always laugh at it because, like, for you to actually think that your idea is unique is actually, it's a little bit funny, because I've heard so many people have ideas, and it's about execution to me. Right. So there's this whole meme going on in the tech space that there are no unique ideas. And when people come and say, let's sign my NDA, that, they feel like they're protecting themselves. That's why some people will not sign NDAs. And I think if you really work and value, trust and value the person that you're approaching, if they're not willing to sign an NDA because of like this belief, you can ask them, like, why don't you want to sign an NDA? If it's that belief, then, it's up to you. I will always sign the NDAs just to ease the concern of the founder. But just so you know, there's very few unique ideas in the world. And like, for you to think that I haven't heard your idea before or some variation of that is a little bit funny, right? So that's kind of the mindset. But don't be afraid that people will steal your idea. It's not about the idea. Building the product is only the first step. To build a company, you have to have your marketing, your go-to-market strategy, your business development, your sales, and everything has to come together in a perfect package for it to be actually successful. You can have the best product on the planet, but if nobody actually wants it, there's no business there, right? And so there's so much more to ideas than just an idea. It's all about execution, and can you get the right team to do it? So don't get hung up on the idea itself.
Awesome. And follow-up question on that one: what if they use GitHub?
What if they use GitHub?
Yeah.
To do what?
To build product. I guess the agency. What if they use GitHub?
They should. So GitHub is a version control system, and you should always use GitHub. So just for those of you who don't know what a version control system is, all of us most likely have used Google Docs at one point or another. What they allow you to do, like Google Docs allows you to do, is to write documents, multiple people to make edits on the same document without overriding each other's changes. And what version control is the same thing for code, right? GitHub or Git. And so when you have multiple developers working on the same project, you have to use version control. And a version control is another way for actually have a copy of your code somewhere else. right? So you should always have, it's like a requirement. If your agency doesn't use version control, that's a big red flag. You should always have it in your, as part of your process.
Super helpful. Let's see. Heen had a question around explaining more on the sourcing to find the co-founder.
Okay, so to find a co-founder, you have to put yourself in a position of actually meeting somebody, right? So what I recommend is going to where technical people hanging out. It's like, if you think of like you wanting to find someone for a date, right? If you're going to sit at home, your date is not going to knock on your door and say, here I am, do you want to go out, right? You need to go put yourself out there, and go to different events, different functions, different places where you at least can give yourself a higher chance of meeting that person. And this is the beauty, right? Like when you meet that person, you're never pitching them. You never actually are saying, come work with me on a startup. You want to focus on building a relationship with that person, because there's nothing more off-putting than getting pitched to come join your startup when I know nothing about you or don't know you at all, right? So over time, focus on building the relationship, and over time, you can see if there's a way to work together, or maybe it's not them, it could be their friend or someone they know, right? So you never know where all of these opportunities come to. And this is the other thing that happens, because this is a strategy that I always teach my students. Some of them met their advisors or technical people who could take on a higher role in their company, and not necessarily a co-founder role. So you never know where all of these things will take you, but put yourself out there and start to network, right? Build your network of technical contacts, and focus on building relationships.
Amazing. That's super helpful. All right, we're almost at time, but I want to get to as many of these as we can. Rapid fire. How do you address the eventual vaporware question that arises when you try to use a prototype to raise money?
So how do you address the what question?
Vaporware question. When they use
vaporware?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I believe what they're saying, vaporware is something that doesn't exist, but it exists on paper. So
okay, so I think you can. Let me address this a little bit differently. So there's different investors that invest at different types of companies at different stages, and they all have different requirements. So the chances of anyone, a first-time founder, I should say, the chances of a first-time founder with no track record to be able to raise money on a prototype, a clickable prototype, are very, very slim. This is just reality, right? Similar to your technical co-founders, a lot of investors get pitched lots and lots of, there's so many entrepreneurs, right, in the world, and they all believe that their ideas are exceptional. So they get pitched so much that they can pick and choose who they get to work with. And so a lot of investors have certain types of requirements that they almost have. And so without traction, a lot of them actually want you to get to 5 to 10K a month of revenue before they would consider to invest, right? And which is why the Lean and Agile methodologies are so great, because they will allow you to cost effectively bootstrap to revenue until you can use investments to be able to put some gasoline on your traction already, right? And that's, I personally believe that you shouldn't be raising money until you get to that stage anyway.
Couldn't agree with you more on that one. All right, well, we're at time. Nelly, thank you so much for contributing time and talent and treasure of knowledge to our community today. We're so stoked to have you, and I'm sure everyone who has attended is not only committed to the process that you've delivered, but also really appreciative as well. So thank you so much, Nelly. For those of you still on the call, we'd love for you to join us on our upcoming webinars. So next Tuesday, we've got Melody Wilding talking about her book, Trust Yourself, Stop Overthinking and Channel Your Emotions at Work. And Wednesday, we've got Product Market Fit with Pavan. So thank you all for joining us today. Thanks again. Shout out to Nelly. If you guys want to sign up for time to speak with her, she's got the link that we'll send in the follow-up. Also, we look forward to welcoming you all back with us online soon.